Drew Percy.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I apologise for being away from the Chamber this afternoon for a period due to committee commitments. But I have followed the debate with interest, and like so many people who've spoken, I too am delighted with the result in Scotland, and I would support everything that's been said in ensuring that the vow is made good on, and that promise must be kept. It was interesting to follow the Honourable Gentleman for Southampton, Itchin, who I agree with in many ways, but his argument falls down in terms of a constitutional convention when he's a member of a party and a member of, as we all are indeed, that now support a mass devolution of powers to Scotland without any consultation with the rest of the United Kingdom, without a constitutional convention. That's got to be, we're told, must be delivered swiftly and quickly to ensure that the vow is kept in one moment. So I'm afraid the argument rather falls down there. If we're going to look and have a constitutional convention, then it should be for the whole way the United Kingdom is governed. And the only conclusion I can come to as an English MP and somebody who's proud to be an Englishman and a Yorkshireman to boot is that this attempt to complicate and muddy the waters by the party opposite is to maintain a political and electoral advantage over England. I can think of no other reason for it. We've heard today how terribly complicated it is to devolve powers to England. How terribly difficult this situation is. Oh, but we must get on and deliver a mass devolution to Scotland very quickly. It wasn't quite so complicated or so difficult when we were agreeing devolution to Scotland, to Wales or to Northern Ireland. But when it comes to England, it's all so terribly complicated. And the fear I have, and many of my constituents have, is that what this is a deliberate attempt to kick into the long grass a decision around the government of England that I know and my constituents know will never be answered. And I will give way to the Honourable Gentleman for now, Helen and Ear.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful, Honourable Gentleman, for giving way. And I just want to be clear that all we're talking about devolving to Scotland are actually Scotland's powers. That the powers pertaining to Scotland that are currently dealt with at Westminster, and this devolution talk at the moment is merely returning those powers back to Scotland. It's nothing more complicated than that.
It's a devolution of powers that massively changes the relationship between England and Scotland and between this House and and Scotland. So it is indeed a major devolution. I don't share the views of my constituents. I will give way very quickly.
And does my honourable friend agree that it's completely bogus that there is difficulty in defining an English issue? An English issue is a Scottish issue in England, which we need to settle here because they settle it there.
I quite agree. I'm not the brightest person on planet Earth. Most of my constituents are a lot brighter than me, but I understand the very basic concept that if a law only applies to England, it is English legislation and it should therefore only be voted upon by English MPs, or in the case of English and Welsh legislation, English and Welsh MPs. I can work that out despite not, as I say, being the brightest. And my constituents have figured this out. Precisely because there hadn't been a constitutional convention and no consultation with the good voters of Brigg Goole and the Isle of Axholme ahead of this process. So 2 weeks before the referendum debate, I did consult my constituents long before the issue of English votes for English laws had gained traction in the media, and said to them what is it they wanted. The overwhelming majority, and we had 600 reply overnight. They sent out 3,000. We had in the end over 1,000 responses. The overwhelming majority, they wanted Scotland to remain in the Union, and as I said previously, 86% of them, when given the simple choice, told me that they wanted Scots, Welsh and Northern Irish MPs stripping of the powers to vote on English-only matters. And when I gave them a range of choices, and I misquoted this earlier in my intervention on the Honourable Lady for Halifax, as to a range of solutions around an English Parliament, regional government or English votes for English laws, where they could pick just one. 58% said they wanted English votes for English laws, 16% an English Parliament, and only 8% wanted regional government in England. And the Honourable Gentleman, the member for Southampton, Itchin, was quite right when he said something has changed in England, because I also asked my constituents how they define themselves as either English or British, and the majority, nearly a majority of them now declared themselves as English first. And there has been a significant change, which is why I don't think this demand from England can be dealt with by simply saying, as we heard from the front bench opposite, let's devolve £30 billion of spending. It sounds an awful lot of money. It's not even a third of the NHS budget. And I was interested in the concept that devolving English votes for English laws is a big Westminster stitch-up, and we're all out of touch, whereas devolving powers to local councillors in the way opposite. And now, is apparently what the people want. Now, I've looked at the turnout figures for local council elections compared to parliamentary elections, and I would strongly suspect that if we're to take them as a basis for people's faith in the political elite, they've got more faith in this place than they have in their local council. So there is a longer-term debate that needs to be had around the constitutional settlement of England and the whole United Kingdom. Perhaps that does merit a constitutional convention. However, in the intervening period, going in tandem with this devolution and new settlement for Scotland, we can very, very simply define English votes for English laws. And if Labour don't get onto this very quickly, they will pay the price electorally.